Recording in progress.
But this doesn't. This turns on green, but this doesn't.
Trying to hold it down.
Because this will light up.
Well, mine, oh, it does light up. Look at that.
Mine just went off.
Oh, you're good.
That's all right. I'll just
Okay,
leave
so
it
we'll
at that.
share. That's
We'll
fine.
just share,
That's fine.
just like the old days.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, all right, let's get started while we're here. We can play with this as we go, at least for this meeting, Marcia. All right, we're going to talk the Government Study Commission. This was an item we talked about trying to start last year at this time, if I remember,
Yes.
and we never got around to it. Linda, can you give us a little background on what it is, what it takes to get it started? As best you can recollect, or is it attached to? Okay. All right, and say we enact an ordinance, what would we do then? Constitute a commission of 9, 10, 11 members or?
Decide how large the commission should be, 7, 9, or 11 options. And then work it if passed. And then 2 things go on the ballot. One is, shall there be a government study commission of 7, 9, or 11 members? And then at the same time, people need to run for those seats.
They run for those seats.
Oh,
And then they have 6 months, a year, whatever, to get something to put on the ballot. Does the mayor make appointments to those? Or they get elected is what you're saying?
They get elected.
Okay,
That's really
all right.
good.
So comments, thoughts on that? Anybody?
They need to collect signatures too. So they need, it's
Like getting any other thing, yeah. So if we would just pass an ordinance, council and mayor, we would start the process of defining, really, we would only define how many members.
Correct.
The rest is up to the electorate. They would decide who. They would decide that group would constitute itself and make a suggestion for the ballot for a new form of government or keeping the same, amending it.
or going back, or like staying in the home rule form, but changing the composition of elected officials, say, making the mayor the council president.
So this should have been done every few years or it's never been?
No,
Okay,
no.
it hasn't been done since
1990.
3.
so let's open it up for comments. Marcia, and then we'll go around.
And I think it's critical to be able to educate the public about what this means, because people can collect petitions, get on the ballot, and unless they know the intricacies of government, what the different forms mean, how are they going to be able to make informed decisions? But we have no control over who gets elected. Okay, so I think it's really important to have a process laid out about how people and the public need to be educated and not to move it forward too quickly without that first happening.
By ordinance then, would we be able, or could we, or how does that work? Delineating, are these at large or are these by district? These are at large.
Yeah.
Yes.
All at large. Okay, I think that's really critical for people to know as well. Because that's a really, because that's,
Anybody else? It opens up a whole world
of stuff, and I've been in favor of something like this for a long time. With all due respect to everyone sitting at this table, I don't believe this form of government is workable, and I think it's held the city back. And it's not regarding any particular person sitting in any particular position at this point. I think the years since 1996 to now have shown us that we have not progressed. And because of the way it's been set up with all good intentions, we haven't been able, with the exception of council staff, been able to have continuity among our administrative staff since day one. And I think that's been a real issue with this form of government, and it's reflected in our process, our progress or lack of progress on many fronts when comparative to our neighboring cities, which do not have this form of government. I think it factors in. So I'm very hopeful we can have a commission that can find a more viable form of government for Reading.
So just for clarity, Is the first step to submit the question for voters to decide on the government commission?
The first step would be for us as constituting the government study commission, then defining it as whether it's 7, 9. I would suspect the higher one. Then they would take it from there, get it on the ballot, get elected, forming themselves, getting their bylaws together, putting it, showing this form of government is the best way to go with that. The issue of this form of government, you're talking probably 2 to 3 years before. So you all, if you were to reset this government, it's probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
It's
So,
not something that would happen to be next month.
so we determine the amount of members. And then who determines the years of service?
I think that is, we have to research this a little bit, but I'm assuming you constitute to be able to say, by municipal election next year, they have to be elected. They get 6 months to 12 months to formally to put it in the ballot the following year. And it's approved in the ballot the following year, you're assuming it's going to take at least a year to go that money to change the form of government, a massive change, definitely takes time. So again, this is probably a 2 to 3 year transform government. Even if you change it, just like, even if you just said it's, mayor, council, form of government, there's different variations. I don't know.
Yeah, and the last time it happened, if there were council people that were full-time, and it segued to this form of government, those folks served out their term as, it didn't interrupt a term per se. So it does take those years to massage it through.
And nothing else. Come up with a recommendation similar to what we have, a variation, and then we follow it. And it would vary with it.
But the city decides, the voters decide. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a law or not. It's probably fair, I think, to say. It's probably the right thing to do. Well, because we should check in with ourselves.
And this would, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I completely understand why we need to relook at the form of government. My concern is that it's an assumption being made that if you elect a government commission, that you're going to have a change that would improve the form of government. Okay, and there's no guarantee of what would happen depending on who gets elected, what their orientation. So I'm going to go back to be careful what you ask for. Okay,
Well, they may come back to your point and say, we like it just the way it is.
right.
We figured that all the other variations,
Mhm.
though we might have some, we don't see really they're delineated in it. I mean, I expect 50% likelihood that's what we're doing. Go ahead.
But it gives the opportunity to really examine it and look at it in comparison with what other cities of equal size have gone through. And just to be clear, this would be the second time a reform was considered on this form of government. Because one had, I believe it was late 90s, early 2000s, there was an effort to change the form of government and it was defeated. So this is the second government study. That one didn't get off the ground. Council wanted to go forward and, okay.
It's not going through Facebook. He's got a message.
All right, additional comments. Mayor, any thoughts? I mean, this is just a we're just kicking this thing around, Johanny.
So the commission, they would be tasked with analyzing or evaluating what worked prior,
Well, looking at what we have
if
now,
it worked prior.
looking at other variations of home rule charter and possibly other forms of third-class city government, I'm assuming probably more the home rule
Aren't
charter.
we a first-class city now? Or we're second?
Second-class
We're
city, whatever we
second-class
are
city,
now, we're-
yes, yeah.
So it would really be a way of just kicking the tires. Is this the most effective way of government? As an individual, I wouldn't be a proponent of just saying, let's just turn the dial because everybody thinks, everything isn't working, Some of this government has worked and some of it we might say it hasn't, but we're here, right? We're functioning. So there's pros and cons and everything. It's like if I sub somebody out on the basketball team, I might get better defense, but I lose scoring, right? I mean, it's everything, it's just, you never know. You could, one little change in this existing government could make a big difference, right? So if anything, it's just a checkup, what I would consider to be, are there recommendations to the existing, changes to the existing form of government? Are there more broad-based recommendations? But then again, that's only decided by the electorate. Even when they come back with a recommendation, right? Then it goes on the ballot, obviously,
Right.
for
right,
consideration by
right.
the voters. So at the end of the day, the voters have the final say,
Exactly.
period,
As they did with this.
as they
one.
should, right?
Government.
Yeah. So,
And understand too, that if you pass the ordinance at the beginning of April, you can't start circulating petitions until August.
right.
13
Ugh.
13 weeks.
I can't hear Linda. when she-
I'll lend you your mic.
So you have to realize too, that if you pass the ordinance at the beginning of April, those that want to run to be on the commission can start circulating petitions before the 13th Tuesday. It follows that
Right.
same election schedule,
Right.
like running for office. So at some point in August, you can start
Right,
circulating and
right.
then.
Right, that makes sense.
Wes, you had the floor. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say for clarity, their choice will be to pick the number of members, so it'll be either 7, 9, or 11.
Yeah, we could do that in the ordinance, yes.
I'm talking about the voters. When they go to the poll.
Yeah, we would define it in the ordinance. We need 11 members, so then they would vote for up to 11.
Okay, so why is there like, there's 3 questions here, but like they're similar. I'm trying to figure out the difference.
Go ahead, go through them, Linda, what are they? Just so he's clear.
If I could just step in, I think we're missing a step here too, because I think if you pass the ordinance, that doesn't necessarily mean you're electing commission members then. The ordinance puts a question on the ballot for the voters to decide whether the commission should be
Okay,
adopted
okay.
or
Gotcha.
not, right? And then if the voters say yes on the commission, then the next year around, then the commission members will
Okay.
be
So
elected.
my-
Doesn't it say that those two things have to, that happens at the same time?
Hmm.
So where do we define, again, let's get back to Wes's 3 questions. Do you know which ones he's referring to?
The first question is, shall a government study commission of 7, 9, or 11 members be elected to consider the advisability of the adoption of an optional plan form of government? And then the next one is for the advisability of the adoption of a home rule charter. And the third is the advisability of the adoption of an optional form of government or a home rule charter.
Would all 3 of those questions go on the ballot?
No, you've got to decide on one.
One of the 2, okay.
And I think in your ordinance, you decide whether you want 7, 9, or 11.
That's what we were talking about. Okay. All right, so this is my position on this thing. If there are 2 members of council, or I don't know how many petitions need to be signed, but if there's 2 members of the body that want to move it forward to the body for consideration, then let everybody know ahead of time and put it on the table. I don't know that it has support at this point. I don't know if everybody's got enough information to support it. So, it's something somebody wants to consider, talk to the other body members about it, get it on the agenda, and we'll discuss it. We'll either vote for it or we'll vote it down. I would think you need at least another sponsor for this one, so. if you- Hi, Johnny.
Nice, it works. And what we are putting forth is the question for the community, for the voters to decide
Yeah.
whether they would like a government
to be
commission.
formed, Right.
Okay,
And then again, if they do form it and then it gets to a process and they produce something, then again, that has to be voted on. So go ahead, Marcia.
And maybe I need a little more clarity after Wes asked those questions. Are they voting on the study commission to study a specific form of government? Or just, and
Yes.
Linda's saying yes, and I believe our solicitor would agree to that too. So we need to select what's on the ballot as far as what form of government we want to have studied. Am I correct?
You have to pick one of the 3. I mean, just looking at them quickly, I don't think the second question would even apply because you already have a home rule charter. So
Okay.
it would be either the adoption of an optional plan form of government for the adoption of an optional form of government or a home rule charter. So I mean, now that I'm talking out loud, I think it's going to be the first question
Right.
by default, which would be, shall a government study commission of 7, 9, or 11 members be elected to consider the advisability of the adoption of an optional plan form of government?
Okay.
So if that's something you want to move forward, you want to work with Mike to make sure it's clear in an ordinance ahead of time. With Linda and Mike to make sure it's clear.
Yeah, and to Linda's point, it does say here that at the same time the decision is made, the voters will elect a group of citizens to conduct the study. So maybe it is a dual election. I'm not sure how that happens, but.
Question.
Go ahead.
So then if they say no, the voters say no, then anyone who was elected to the commission, that's null and void,
Right.
correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
just so we make that clear to everyone. So it actually saves a step by doing both simultaneously.
So, honey,
If it goes forward.
So this is dictated by the home rule charter, or can we decide if we want to put the question first and then the election
Mike would have to look at that.
for the community to select their members?
I'd have to look at that part.
It's the home rule charter and optional plans.
So if council's interested in the home, if they adopt the home rule form in the ordinance, then they'd be asking the commission to re-examine the form of government that we currently have and consider making adjustments to it.
Yeah, that's one of the, I actually just shared with everybody, DCED actually has a really good. DCED actually has a really good publication on it. And it actually explains and there's only been 2 charter forms of government that have gone back to the government study a second time. And it tells you which question, I forget exactly which, but it tells you what you would need to do to amend a home rule charter, or to change a home rule charter form of government into a separate form of government within another home rule charter.
All right, it's all good stuff. Go ahead, John, honey.
Okay, and then just for clarity for the viewers, so I just want to use an example because I know I've heard this a lot from constituents. An example of changing the form of government would be something like making city council positions full-time.
It could be one.
No,
of
because
the-
I've
yeah,
heard constituents
be.
often say that.
right. Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out, that if that would
Which is
be,
somewhat where we came from an old commission format where we had
That was a
full-time,
commission where there was 5.
which had its pros and cons. I don't know. but Jesus,
Everything has pros.
I'd be able to borrow money from everybody. Right? We're gonna be able to- Extra money for the city council pizza fund. I mean, there's a lot, no, I'm only kidding. There's no city council pizza fund. I better. All right, so again, if 2 members want to move that forward, I would solidify it with Mike through Linda. That's certainly somewhat, you don't need full council approval for that. I mean, it'd be an hour or 2 from Mike probably to tackle that. So it's not like we need a full body vote on that. That's something you could pursue. Well, yeah, then bring it forward and I don't even know where I stand, quite honestly. I mean, okay. If we're done on that, we had this on the agenda. This was one of the items, right, Linda? We scheduled on the committee of the whole because we kept talking about it and we never got to it. So, right, same with this one, which was containing charter board costs. And you know what, Shelley, to her credit, she emailed them out to us almost immediately, and I don't have them in front of me. Does anybody have kind of an annual cost for the last 2 to 3 years in front of them? Shelley, do you have them in front of you by chance?
Not in front of me, but I can screen share if you'd like.
Okay. It's worse than the glasses. So You know, the charter board functionality is something we've been talking about, and it serves a good purpose. It keeps people in compliance with the charter, but it also replicates costs that we're spending an exorbitant amount of costs at the city charter board solicitor level. And in some cases, having to go beyond that to court anyway. And we need to take an honest look at what we're spending. Oh geez, can somebody read that year by year? Is that 1 year? Holy smokes.
That's total overall of those several investigations that are listed there
For 2022?
from 19 through present for those 6 investigations.
And that total is how much?
$352,400.
Since 2019.
Yes,
So we're talking, 127,000 a year just in solicitor call for the charter board, right?
It depends on the year. The last several years have been high. There's some years where there's little to no activity and the costs are lower, but
But even if you cut them, by 50%, you're talking another city employee, somewhere. All right, comments, anybody on charter board costs? They are what they are, but does anybody have any comments? This would be the time.
Yeah,
Ooh.
investigation number 53 cost 84,414 to date. And 54 cost 95,632.
And what was the 84,001 for? What was that case?
Investigation 53, that's, I believe, a Wally related one.
yeah, for failure to appoint an administrative service director, which was filed after our now finance director hired.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, Johanna, you were first.
Okay, so my question is, this is an outrageous amount of money, obviously. But my question is, how to avoid these costs?
Go ahead, Fred.
Well, Mike and I are working on an ordinance, and I think we could have that in a couple weeks. I think it will address some of the issues so that we don't end up with this drawn out litigation, but still maintains a board that can address issues as they come up as an alternative to the courts. There might be times where, the council and the administration don't get along and Mike and I have to go to court, or we might say, let's just take it to the charter board. It's less, it's an easier way to resolve the problem, but not have it turn into something contentious. I mean, this is with the, I think when you're penalizing people for things they've already done, that's where the contentiousness comes in, and that's why we have these scorched earth cases, where this board was really meant to be, like most administrative bodies, an easier way to deal with disputes. And I think, we have a council solicitor now. I think we've already kind of see how things are getting resolved behind the scenes. But if there does come an issue that rises to the level where, everyone can agree, there's other ways to do it, but the charter board will still be there as an option. And I think it could, and for people, the other thing is the charter board, it's a way for citizens to get the ball rolling, and we want to keep that as well. We out of their hands. But at the same time, we don't want to get stuck, because a lot of the cases have been filed by citizens where we have to go through a 9-month period for the charter board, only to then go to court anyway.
Right. So I like that. So we'll wait to hear that. That might be the answer to our problems. Because I'm just trying to think, for those last 3 years, even if this thing were capped at $50,000 a year, which is still a lot of money, that could have been an extra fireman or 2 policemen or park equipment. I mean, stuff that we could be putting to good use, or the administration could be putting to good use, instead of us just pouring it down the drain. So we'll wait to hear that recommendation. I'd like to see if we could build caps in there. That may not be possible, but something we can look at and go from there. Any additional comments? Again, this is another one of these issues that have been kind of laying off to the side that we've been trying to get to. So we're just trying to get it at least looked at and see if we can clean it up. Because it's wasting our money. It's wasted. $150,000 a year, Eddie, on a charter attorney. He's probably driving a new, not to say they don't earn their money. I'm not picking on the attorney. I really am, but you know, what are attorneys good at? Who said that?
Because lawyers love,
They're excellent.
no one loves a lawyer joke more than a lawyer.
No, they work hard. No, and don't get me wrong. I mean, you pay for their expertise, so it is what it is. All right. So, any other comments on that? Mayor, any comments on that? No? Okay. All right. So we'll move on then to agenda review. Johanny, do you mind starting us? I got to hit the boys room again. Do you mind starting us off on the agenda review? You can just start at the very top, see if there's any there's no commendations, see if there's any proclamations, any public speakers, and then get right into the consent agenda.
Sure, thank you, Jeff. It's my first time. I appreciate that. Okay. So Linda, we've confirmed the invocation.
Yes.
Okay. And then Donna, you'll read out the rules for public comment? Sure. Great. Okay, so then let's get started. So the consent agenda legislation, we have A, award of contract. Would anyone like to tell us a little bit more about that? It says for maintenance support of the current VSU, Video Safety Unit, to Let's Think Wireless LLC, Pine Brook, New Jersey, at $86,684.92. Okay, yep.
In your council packet, you have a memo that was prepared by the chief and staff members. So the recommendation is to award the contract for maintenance support of the current video safety unit to LTW. And the memo gives some background on why they were selected. So there's sufficient funds in the budget to cover this project. The total award amount is $86,000 and some change. Formal action is required from council because it's a contract that's over $30-some thousand. But we followed the proper procurement process.
Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so let's move on. So Resolution B, appointing Wesley Butler to the Nominations and Appointments Committee. Any comments? Great. Resolution C, ratifying the rescission of the 90-day declaration of emergency executed on January 3rd, 2022, and ratified on January 10th, 2022. Frank?
Sure, thank you. So yes, we're basically, we're asking to rescind the declaration of disaster emergency effective March 4th. This is consistent with what the Commonwealth has done in surrounding communities and basically.
Microphone.
Okay, there we go. Works out much better. Thank you. Okay. Want me to start over again?
Yes, just so that.
Okay,
everyone
sure.
can
Thank
hear.
you. No, there we go. That works. I can hear it. Okay, great. So basically what the resolution is to ratify, to rescind the declaration of disaster that was put in place on January 4th, and it would be effective March 4th. This is consistent with what the state is doing and other surrounding municipalities because of with the COVID numbers and all the standards put in place, that it's no longer needed to have the declaration of emergency. So we added to the consent agenda.
If I may, after, as I shared the last meeting, after collaborating with fire marshal and other individuals that assist with the decision-making of the COVID restrictions, we felt that it would be most appropriate to lift that, rescind that.
Thank you, Mayor and Frank. Council President, would you like to continue?
No, please do.
Okay. Okay, so now we're on Resolution D, agreeing to the alternative form of financial security for municipal improvements related to the Habitat Humanity Gateway Improvement Project as per the saldo. Would anyone like to elaborate or
So whenever there's a development project that goes in front of the planning commission, before they get their approval and the ability to proceed with the project, they're required to give some sort of an escrow or a bond in the amount of what our engineer determines is the total cost of the municipal improvement. So that could be like your sidewalks, streets, some landscaping. And then they put either money in escrow or a bond that covers that amount. So because this is Habitat for Humanity, we're still making them do the agreement. So it's something we can, hold against them should they walk away from the project. But I think we have enough trust in a group like Habitat. I'll let Mike explain.
I think there's also HUD money standing behind it as well too. And the planning commission did recommend this alternative form because of that, and also due to the charitable nature of Habitat for Humanity and being a good partner with the community.
Thank you. And I also see in the attachment in the actual resolution that Habitat for Humanity is proposing to build 11 dwellings, including 4 sets of residential duplexes totaling 8 dwelling units in the 400 block of Miltmore Street in the city of Reading, as exhibited on the final plan for Habitat for Humanity for the Buttonwood Gateway project.
Very good.
Yeah, that's correct. But my understanding is this is only for the 8 units, not for the additional 3, because they're not part of the HUD funding yet.
So it's for the homeowners.
So should this be updated, this resolution, to reflect that?
No, I think the resolution's appropriate the way. it's
Okay.
written.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions or comments on behalf of council?
No.
Okay. All right, so moving on to Resolution E, authorizing the purchase of 5 new patrol vehicles to replace aging frontline vehicles in the police department fleet to Whitmore Ford, Inc., Mount Joy, PA, at the cost of $301,270. These new vehicles are coming with 5-year, 75,000-mile warranty. Quotes were received from 3 CoStarz vendors. Whitmore Ford, Inc. is an authorized City of Reading vendor and is also a member of CoStarz. Would Chief like to make a comment?
Sure, these are just going to replace frontline vehicles. And then our frontline vehicles get rotated into our backup fleet, and then the backup fleet, if there's no need for any specialty vehicles like at the academy, they go to the shop to be decommissioned. We did get multiple quotes. This is the best value. These cars will come delivered complete with lights, sirens, and all the mounts for the computers.
Again, Chief, how many years do we get out of these again? Just a couple, right?
Yeah, depending on the districts that they're in and how often they're used, we usually get between 3 to 5 years out of a car.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any comments, questions, concerns on behalf of council? No? Okay. Resolution F, in support of the 11th Annual Wyland Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, to explore ways to manage residential consumption of water and power, to inspire its residents to care for our natural resources and to become better environmental stewards. Any mayor or managing director would like to make a comment?
Sure. What this is a resolution to support the Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. This is a national program that begins in the month of April. And basically what it is we're encouraging residents to make a simple pledge to decrease their water use and to reduce pollution in 1 year. So you would go onto the website, a resident would be able to make a pledge and pick a project to be able to do this. So it's something really important as we look for sustainable ways to reduce water usage through water conservation. So the resolution just supports that effort.
And I think that's excellent. I know, Mayor, if you give me to speak to it, because, you know, we happen to be very fortunate, you know, in a very water abundant kind of watershed that we have, a very valuable asset that we have. But that's all the more reason to preserve it and take care of it. I think it's a great effort. Eddie,
And many cities are participating, many mayors are participating. I already started with the video in the hopes that, you know, this goes through to encourage residents to participate. We'll make it fun-filled, but yet very informative. I know I have a son that in school, he was giving some challenges to conserve water. My 21-year-old autistic son, he still puts a timer on when taking a shower to make sure he conserve water. So, you know, again, it's about education, a fun way to, you know, introduce education about the conservation of water and usage.
and again, I think that's important coming out of a water wealthy community. You know, lots of people barely have water,
Yes.
and some of them get it out of rivers and not far from dispensary sites, I'll say. So we have a very abundant watershed, which we should be grateful for. And I think it's even more important that we preserve it.
Marcia?
Yeah, and thank you, first of all, for supporting this. It comes at a critical time. In talking with individuals that are landlords, they're running into a consistent problem with their tenants who have no idea what the cost of water is. The landlords need to pick up the cost from the water authority and sometimes are left with exorbitant bills in the thousands and thousands of dollars where the renter will just walk away. And I think we need to look at a way of working with landlords to help to educate the tenants regarding this. It's become, I was just appalled by what I found out when I was, you know, speaking with certain landlords and what was happening to that. They'll just turn on the water and just let the taps run. And even though you're right, we are fortunate to have an extraordinary watershed, it doesn't mean that continues in perpetuity. And unless we change people's behavior, we could run into a crisis. Okay, so I think we just need to be mindful. Any way I can do to help with that effort, I'm really committed as part of the Environmental Advisory Board to be able to make that happen.
Thank you. And if I may add, Mayor, so I'm going to assume that we're going to be having like a campaign marketing, right, to advertise this and to encourage folks to do their online pledges.
Yeah, like I
Is-
said, I already recorded a video that as soon as this is a go, is going to be shared with the community and the stakeholders in our city so they could start participating and we get points. So it's a real challenge. It's not just, you know, an educational fees, and it's a real challenge that I'm taking seriously, if you guys allow me to make sure that we win. And as a consequence, we're gonna be able to educate our community. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to Resolution G, authorizing the mayor to sign and submit an application for a PA CFA local share assessment grant for the funding of the construction of the new training and special operations facility for the Reading Police Department. So I mean, this is just an application process.
Correct.
All right, any comments?
So what the resolution is authorizing the mayor to be able to sign the grant application. Most grant applications do require a resolution. And we had a conversation about this grant program. Today, State Senator Schwank talked about the assessment program. And the purpose of the grant is really to support projects in the public interest that improve the quality of life of citizens in the community. So our application is seeking $1 million toward a new facility for the Reading Police Department for special operation units, which would include like a mobile command, communications unit, tactical response team, and bomb squad. So, so that would go toward the cost of building that facility. And this project specifically is already in the capital budget for this year.
Great, thank you, Frank. Jeff?
So would that be, Frank, separate from the academy? This is a special ops kind of training facility, or this is not tied into, we're still at Alvernia, right? Doing.
Right, I believe, and I would probably defer to Jamar, who has more details about actually what's taking place.
Go to
You have to go to a mic, Jamar. Jamar, you have to go
You
to a
need the
mic.
mic. Oh, sorry.
Council President, this would double as a training facility as well as equipment storage facility and housing for the Special Operations Division of the Police Department.
Just curious, okay. Thanks.
So we would move from Alvernia into our own building. It would allow the police department to be able to expand the number of classes that the academy offers. Currently, it produces about 300,000 in revenue. They would be able to almost double that. Ability.
Marcia?
Okay, and first of all, I wanted to just reiterate what the administration said, is that when Senator Schwank presented last week, I don't think that all of us were aware that you were, or the administration was in a ready position to put in the application, which it turned out to be the case. And I think there might have been some confusion because of the name of the grant, but thank you for doing your due diligence. Thank you to Chief Tornelli for doing what was necessary. And I think it's a good use of the money when we have projects lined up that we know may not be able to be covered under capital, that we're ready to be able to apply for grants. So good work.
Anyone else? Okay, so we're gonna move on to,
Donna.
oh, sorry, Donna. She's right next to me.
Do we have a site in mind? Do we have a site in mind for this location?
Yes. I believe it's in the agenda memo, but it will be on Morgantown Road, in the area near the wastewater treatment plant facility. The
Okay.
city owns 2 parcels in that area for what was previously going to be a location for the treatment plant.
Okay, so near the wastewater treatment plant.
The actual address be 946/970 Morgantown Road,
Okay.
which is our property near the
Okay,
wastewater plant.
thank you.
And if everyone's in agreement, Mayor asks to go back and revisit Resolution E.
Well, actually, I just had some additional information that I misspoke, that there's really no real price. Actually, prices of from the foundation that is making the challenge. The video is already up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor. Is that resolution
Resolution G, the water.
F? Resolution F.
I'm sorry, resolution. I apologize.
No
F,
worries.
the water challenge. I just wanted to, I didn't misspeak. As then any prices, the foundation that is putting this together nationwide do have prices. And the video that I made is already up. So I didn't want to misspeak. Also locally, the RAWA and the sustainability manager are putting together some prices programs for the residents. So the residents will also benefit not only from the educational fees, but some potential prices for participating. I just didn't want to misspeak.
And again, Mayor, I think it's an excellent program, and I agree with Marcia. We don't have a never-ending amount of water, but we do. I would continue to emphasize that you represent how many acres? 2,000 acres around that watershed. On I mean, we have one of the best watersheds in the country. To emphasize that, and then the fact that we're still focusing on conservation is a big thing.
Conversation.
Yep. Sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna move along to H, award of contract for traffic signal preventative maintenance to Telco Inc., 1224 Cross Keys Road, Maryland, 21030 at the submitted price of $300,000. Chief or Managing Director?
This is just a standard contract for traffic signal preventive maintenance. So we do have sufficient funds to cover the $300,000. And as the memo that was prepared, the agenda memo, we followed, the proper procurement process. So, but this is for traffic signal preventive maintenance. And not to jump ahead, but the next resolution will be traffic signal response, which is a little bit different. I can explain what the difference is. So this is proactive, being preventive maintenance. And I can explain what the difference is for the next one.
Any comments before we move on to the next one? So we can explain.
They seem to have done a wonderful job for us over the last 2 years, them and the electrician Pernice. I mean, they've been very, very responsive.
So that leads us to a word of contract to Telco again for the price of, is this 450? Wow, there's a lot of zeros here. You
It
see
looks
that?
like
Too many zeros.
1 trillion,
Got
really.
scared. Wow. 450,000 for traffic signal repair.
That's what
Make
they
sure
do
we're-
to you, John. You see, they try to.
Wow. Call basis 24/7 as per PennDOT 19 publication 191. Frank, the floor is yours.
Sure, thank you. The difference here is, this is a response maintenance program. So when lights are out because maybe of an accident, bad weather, the contractor has to get out within 2 hours to respond to put the light back in repair. And they also coordinate with the police department, about how to control traffic. But this is based on, a storm. A lot of times if an accident that hits a light, knocks the light out, that their job is to come out right away to get the light repaired as quickly as possible. And so that's what this contract's for. And we have the sufficient funds. We're budgeted to cover this cost of this contract.
I have a question. So contract, is it 1 year? How long is the contract?
Yeah, I'm looking at the memo. I believe. It doesn't,
Yeah,
it doesn't say in the memo, so I imagine it would be more than 1 year, but I don't have the actual amount. I usually standard contracts, which may apply here, usually 3 to 5 years, but the memo doesn't address the length of the
Can we
contract.
get that before our public meeting, please?
Kyle, do you know the term of the telco contract?
Your mic's not on, Linda. Kyle, would you know the term of the telco contract?
I believe that was 1 year, but I would have to go back and look. I could do that right now.
Yeah, if you don't get us before the end of the meeting, shoot me an email. Either way, it'd be fine. Go ahead. John.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that takes us to the administrative report. Who will be giving the administrative report this evening?
Both the mayor and myself, the mayor will start off with his part of the report, and I'll conclude with the remainder part.
Awesome, great. And then followed by the report from our auditor. And we don't have any reports from directors, boards, authorities, or commissions this evening. So that leads us to ordinances for final passage. We have bill number 106-2021, amending the city code chapter 23, part 1201, downtown revitalization, public-private partnership, introduced at the December 13th regular meeting, tabled at the December 27th, January 10th, January 24th, February 14th, and February 28th.
And I'm
Regular
gonna
meetings.
ask
Yes,
I'm
Council
gonna
President?
ask that we table it one more time.
Okay,
Just table it one more time.
That may be a record table. Marcia would know.
Let's
Linda would know.
withdraw it for now. and We'll come back to it.
Can I just make I think when we see something that isn't ready, rather than continuing to table it, I think we should just
That's fair.
withdraw it and start again. Yeah, exactly.
Administration's-
All right, I'll
Okay.
withdraw it at the opening of the meeting.
okay, great. Withdrawn.
Yeah.
All right, that takes us to B, bill number 5-2022, amending the 2022 position ordinance as per the mayor to reflect a change to the title of the position of executive assistant in the mayor's office to special assistant and to reflect an increase in the base salary of the special assistant position from 53,000 to 63,652.50 per annum. Introduced at the December 27th regular meeting, tabled at the January 10th, January 24th, February 14th, and February 28th. Now, should we amend this bill to reflect that it's a reclassification? Is that necessary?
don't
Because
think
we're
it is.
eliminating a position and creating another.
I think the bill kind of does it in and itself,
Okay,
and I'm going to support moving it forward. So
we have any comments, questions, concerns from the body? Put your mic on, Wes.
And what you were saying, if it could be reclassified to say that we're getting rid of one position, to create another. I think deserves that. Is there a way we can?
Do we have the ordinance in front of us?
Yes.
Because it, Linda, can you read the entire ordinance for us? Because it might say that, I'm not sure. So let's listen to it and see what it says.
Upon evaluation of the mayor of Reading, the position ordinance shall be amended to reflect a change to the title of the position of executive assistant in the mayor's office to special assistant and to reflect an increase in the base salary of the special assistant position to $63,652.50 per annum and an amended nothing.
So it amends the position, right? And it amends the base salary at the same time, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know that we need to amend it to amend it to say anything different, but if you want to, you can. You see what I'm saying?
Right. I guess it reads, it reflects a change to the title versus we're eliminating the position altogether and creating a
Confusing.
special
So you want
assistant
to
position.
eliminate it and
Am I
add it is
correct?
what you would rather do?
Yes, eliminate
Okay.
executive assistant.
And then add the,
Sure.
you can do that. That makes
Okay.
sense. So when it comes to that ordinance, somebody just needs to make a motion to amend.
Wesley, would you,
I'd like
you
to
make that
a motion-
recommendation, please?
Yeah, during the meeting, Wes.
I'm sorry.
At the regular meeting.
We'll to make an amendment. And then make sure we help them step
Okay.
through it. Okay, that's fair.
Thank you.
Got to be comfortable with.
Okay, so that takes us to C, Bill number 17-2020. Approving settlement agreements pertaining to the outstanding loans related to the Book Bindery Building at 148 North 4th Street. This was tabled at the February 28th regular meeting. Are we?
Yeah, we're still tabling. I know
Okay.
Mike needs time with this, yeah.
I think we need to have an executive session before the next meeting, and I know I've talked to Fred about that, so hopefully we don't have to table it any further then.
Okay. Next bill, Bill 18-2022, amending City Code Chapter 576 Vehicles and Traffic, Section 420, parking against the traffic flow by exempting vehicles parked in violation of this section due to winter weather conditions. Yes,
For
Council
some reason, I
President?
thought we had already approved this thing. Wow. So this is still pending. So this is against traffic.
And
Can we delay this till we regroup with the parking authority? Because I don't think we clarified it. I know they said something maybe about only in snow emergencies. I'll turn it over to Marcia. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I understand you're willing, or you're wanting to do that. And I guess I realize that a lot of people are illegally parked. So I'm not sure we're gonna have another storm that's gonna hit us like last Saturday. But that was the reason to do that, was to prevent the parking authority from ticketing people who were just trying to park safely.
So would you be okay in deferring this one? till we-
I just want to be able to make sure that people, the parking authority is going to be respectful of the fact that it's in process and not send out folks to be ticketed. I don't think it happened I know it didn't happen because I was sort of watching over the last storm, but just until we have this approved, that there be the practice of not ticketing folks.
What I got from them is that, yeah, they're not out there trying to be ticket happy, but they're trying to make sure we set this up where it makes sense, that maybe if there's an emergency declaration, then it makes sense, whatever. I think, to your point, we're not likely to get another storm, till next winter. We could, that doesn't mean we won't, but maybe we plan on having them back in a couple of weeks.
And just to the point about declaring an emergency, last Saturday wasn't, but it was the type of storm that made it difficult to park on the hills in the uphill direction. So, it's not going to be just a snow emergency. It's going to be the condition of the roads and how I see they are.
True.
Okay. That takes us to E, Bill 19-2022, amending City Code Chapter 576 Vehicles and Traffic, Section 503, Sundays and holidays exempted by retitling the section as hours of enforcement and Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays accepted, adding Saturday to accepted enforcement and limiting the hours of enforcement to Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. introduced at the February 28th regular meeting. Yes, Council President.
I support their wish to keep Saturday as effective enforcement, only till 6 o'clock. Now I know you might have a different opinion. Just give me a look here. Jesus, don't stare me down.
Well, no, may I go next? Yeah. So, I had a conversation, so I'm listening to residents, consumers, business owners, right?
Yeah.
So the issue is that when Saturday parking is free, residents will park their vehicle Friday night and leave it there till Monday.
Right.
So while it saves time and effort for residents, right, because they're getting a break one day a week, which is a
Yeah.
great thing, but then it hurts, right, businesses, because then they don't have parking for their consumers, right? So when speaking to different business owners, they're kind of like, okay, well, how do we do win-win? One business owner said, well, why can't, since most businesses are closed at 6 p.m. on a Saturday, how about we meet residents halfway, maybe 8 to 1 or 8 to
That's
2
what I was
versus 8 to
originally-
6.
Yeah, that's what I was
So we
originally
can come up
thinking,
with a
maybe
win-win,
1
happy
or 2
medium.
o'clock. Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah, I like that. I think
And
that's
also, I think, the parking, already they're advertising and maybe stressing to residents that parking is available at the garages for $30 a month, which is incredibly affordable, right? So
So what are you gonna recommend, Johanny? 2 o'clock?
I'm recommending that we amend, that we amend the ordinance. So we're keeping enforcement, but to limited hours. So
What
I
time?
would like to know from the body, either 8 a.m. to 1 or 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah, I was originally thinking 3 or 4. I would stick with 2,
I
1 or
think 2 is
2.
good.
Is
Two.
2 fair?
2's fair, 3's
okay with
pushing
that.
it, but
I mean, again, I'm only gonna speak from my visits to other cities that I would love to see our downtown to reflect, okay? And most time it's up to about 3 o'clock because it gives some time for the businesses to do their business, to get a good turnaround of flow of traffic through their doors because of parking. My concern would be that if we do it too early, then you're gonna have a congestion of double parked cars on the Penn Street corridor, as we hope we get more in town. Keep that in mind. Again, 2 is perfect, it's fine, but 3, I think, will probably be more respectful for the business owners.
yeah, I could live with 2 or 3, so it don't matter to me.
But I want to get input from everyone so that so we all agree. Yes, Donna?
I mean, with all due respect, too, just to give the residents space. They deal with it all week long.
Marcia?
Okay, and trying to be respectful of what's saying about using the parking lots. I think the residents, because of how many cars we have in the city, are gonna need to learn different parking behaviors. And they may need to learn that parking doesn't come free and that you may need to budget for whatever it might cost to park in the garages. I don't know how we make that change, but I think it's soon to happen because too many people have too many cars and we just don't have enough spaces. So what you see happening on Penn Street, which is extraordinarily dangerous, every time I drive down there are people that are parked behind the parked cars. I think we can make this change, but I think there's an overall more of a change of strategy. So the people that are residents know that they aren't guaranteed on-street parking. And I say that not only for downtown, I say that for the whole city. Then I know the parking authority is trying to locate more parking lots throughout the city. As far as my perception of this, I would rather go for 3 o'clock, but I think it really is a bigger problem than just us voting on this ordinance.
Wes, what do you think?
I agree with Donna and giving them more time for 8 to 2 on Saturday.
Thank you. Okay. I would ask Council President, I think he said 2 or 3, he's either or, all right. So what are we gonna agree to, 2
I'm
PM
here
or 3
too.
PM? Oh, Melissa, I'm so sorry. What, I apologize, Melissa. What did you say? PM or 3 PM?
8 to 2.
Okay. All right, she said 8 to 2 PM. All right, thank you, Melissa. Okay, so 8 to 2, I think 1, 2, 3. Want to make it a fair process,
Yeah, I'm
Marcia.
fine.
Okay. Okay, so that takes us to Resolutions, and we have A, reappointing Lisa Blount to the Human Relations Commission. Resolution B, reappointing, oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Marcia. Did I skip something? Oh, my goodness,
five.
wow. I skipped the whole
So we're gonna
page.
get through the meeting, no, Johnny, I like
Yeah,
it.
you-
Very good. Follow that.
Look at that. I apologize. All right, so that takes us to F, Bill 20-2022.
Just earned yourself extra ice cream. Tell you that much.
Ay, ay, ay. Amending the budget by allocating $134,000 for the Reading Climate Program introduced at the February 28th regular meeting. I know we received a presentation regarding the matter. Any comments, concerns, or questions? No? Okay. G, Bill 21-2022, amending the budget Fund 47 ARP by allocating $150,000 for consulting expenses, introduced at the February 28th regular meeting. Anyone? Can we remind what the consulting expenses are for, please? Jamar?
Counselors, for monitoring compliance and evaluation of how we're spending the money to make sure that we don't run afoul of any of the regulations in the Rescue Plan Act, as well as the federal statute that governs the use of those funds.
Thank you, Jamar. Okay, that takes us to H, Bill 22-2022, amending Personnel Code 70-701, salary administration by increasing the salary ranges as follows. 3, Chief of Police. The Chief of Police for the City of Reading shall be compensated at an annual salary of no less than $8,000 and no more than $135,000. Community Development Director, the Director of the Department of Community and Economic Development for the City of Reading shall be compensated at a salary of no less than $75,000 and no more than $120,000. Comments, concerns, questions?
Other than these, just the ranges, these aren't setting anyone's salaries. Just to remind everybody.
Wesley?
So I have a question about the ordinance you guys passed last year when you guys gave the police more money. If I could see that in writing, I just want to compare it to this in terms of the numbers wise.
Okay, Linda, do you know which one he's referring to?
If you guys
Yeah.
remember.
Oh.
Wes, I could get that for you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so you want to look at the actual budget that was
Yeah.
approved for 2022 so that it specifies.
Yeah, because I know you guys gave the police more money when I watched the meeting last year. I just want to see that.
There was a 4.5 increase.
Yeah, and I think he's. Yep.
There's-
Send you the contract and the budget?
Yes.
There's two ordinances you'll probably want to see. There was a specific ordinance for the chief of police in April, and then passed the budget. It reflected the 4.5% increase. The chief's ordinance tied him to the FOP contract. So the contract went up 4.5%. His pay went up 4.5%.
And it is good for Wes to see that
Yeah.
and how it pertains to this range. So
Okay,
And
make sure we get that to him.
okay.
I'll send him over.
I'm sorry, for the community development director, that was a position you guys did the same thing with in terms of giving more money to, you passed the ordinance.
I don't know that we gave him an increase in 2022.
Or he- well,
2021.
That was another one that was increased early in 2020, I think in January or February. And then it was increased again at the beginning of 2022 in the budget, in the
Right.
position orders.
So we should get him both of those salaries so you see how they play within the range.
Yes, please.
But, oh,
However, his base pay salary doesn't include the the extra money he gets from the redevelopment.
Mhm.
fund, 10,000, something like that. So that shouldn't be reflected in the position ordinance. Correct.
Well, I think it's important to have it so that we know what the range is, even including the redevelopment authority contribution. So I think we can,
Redevelopment authority doesn't affect his base pay.
Yeah,
If
from
he
the city.
stops working for the redevelopment authority, that extra money goes away.
right. But I think for the purposes of this ordinance only, I think it makes sense to have the range reflected because
Just as
I
long as
don't-
we're not affecting his base pay.
Yeah.
So why are we doing this? Are we projecting for next year's budget?
we're correcting for this year's budget because this year's budget, this should have been done before, as I explained 2 weeks
Reflects
ago.
the-
And it
reflects
was
the
brought up after the fact.
of this year.
So it definitely then reflects the actual pay for the individuals.
Correct.
So in actuality, they're not getting paid 100 and, so the chief of police is not getting 125, he's really getting 135,000.
No, he's
No.
getting what he's getting. This will just make it so that he's within the range he's supposed to be in.
Oh, because as it stands, it exceeds what
Correct.
we already have. Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Does that make sense, Wesley?
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay,
for
thank you.
clearing that up.
All right, so that takes us to I-Bill 23-2022, authorizing the installation of an all-way stop sign at the intersection of Buttonwood and North Second Street in accordance with City Code Section 576-213. Go ahead, Managing Director.
Thank you. So actually, Bill 23 and Bill 24 are similar bills. What Public Works did was conduct an engineering traffic study, and both studies determined that a stop sign would be necessary over at the intersections of Second Bunwood and 13th and Perry. So the city just doesn't just place stop signs where they think they should go. We go through a very detailed engineering study to make sure that this is the right thing to do. So both those studies recommended that stop signs are placed there. So we have to be able to have a resolution to be able to finalize it. So it's on the books that stop signs are legit.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you also on behalf of the residents that live in that area that petitioned to make this possible. Stay tuned, because in the future, the same resident who gathered petitions wants to host a block party to celebrate the accomplishments of the community. So looking forward to that, right? This is how we empower our community members to make change and celebrate that.
When is that happening?
So we're looking at June 18th. So city clerk's office is helping us, council members put that together. So it's a nice celebration of what community does when they come together and, they see a problem and they say something, they do something. Yes, Marcia.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I think it's good. I just feel very taken aback that one of the critical intersections in District 15th and Perkiomen Avenue, because it's a state road, we're at logger jams on what to do about that. And I can't tell you how dangerous that is. I mean, we're going to see fatalities there. We've already seen injuries. And so I would hope that not needing to have the people petition, because we all know it's a problem, that we figure out how to work around that. Okay? And I know there was a suggestion that came up about, and I think it was from our deputy city clerk, maybe changing the light. Okay, we have to do something here.
Donna?
Marcia, if you want to send me a sort of formal email, I will bring it up at the RATS meeting on Thursday, because
Okay.
all the PennDOT people are there. So if you can send me just a sort of synopsize what you said, and I will enter it into the record and request that action be taken.
Thank you very much.
And just Wes, for your reference, the RATS is the Reading Area Transportation Study Group. Donna is our representative there. They deal with all the state and federal highway dollars. So if you ever run into road or, stop sign issues, you can work not only through the administration, but through Donna, because that's where all the PennDOT people are. Actually, 15th, 16th, 17th, 19th Street all have a light. And 18th, for some reason, never qualified. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
And I knew, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And then Frank?
Okay. There is an issue because what happens with, you're going on a downhill, people are coming from Mount Penn They just think it's a freeway to be able to just go and even run the lights when you
Especially when
do
there's a
have.
truck on the corner there.
Yeah, so, yeah, and because of the number of use, so. Frank, did you?
Yes, certainly the administration has advocated for what you've been suggested. We did get a response from PennDOT, which I'll share with all the council members
Mhm.
on what their response is and what their take is on it. And we have some options, but what I'll do is I do have a written response. So I'll just email it to the whole council body and which will allow for further discussion to explore how we move forward. But
Okay.
yeah, just because the nature of the email, it's best if I just send it through email now and then trying to read it verbatim. It's kind of lengthy. For the sake of time, then we get further discussion. But we did look into it after you requested
Right.
on
Thank
what
you.
the approach is. Yep.
Thank you, Frank. And that takes us to the next Bill 24-2022, the installation of an always stop sign at the intersection of North 13th and Perry Street in accordance with City Code Section 576-213, introduced 28th regular meeting. Yes, Wesley.
I want to speak on it since it's my district. I know District 4 residents and I guess the city, people who pass through that area are pleased with, because the stop sign's up right now and they're pleased, especially since it's in a school, to save kids from getting hit. Other constituents in my district want a stop sign on North 13th and Pike. And so I want to know if that would qualify for a stop sign. Who do I go to? Is that,
That's a city street, so
That's
Public
city
Works
street.
can consider that.
Right, but we would have to do a traffic engineering study. Anytime we're taking a look at changing the flow of traffic, we're required to do an engineering, traffic engineering study. So what I'll do is I'll put the request sent to Public Works and I can follow up with you on how we would proceed.
all right, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to introduction of new ordinances. I know typically Councilwoman Marcia Hinoshitz, right? You read out the new ordinances just for today or for this moment.
We're gonna, it's a new time and a new place.
Yes,
so
I was gonna ask.
Wes Butler will be reading off the introduction of the new ordinance.
Thank you. So Councilman Butler, if you'd like to do us the honor and read the introduction of ordinances.
So we're following tradition, right? All right.
Thank you.
Introduction of new ordinance. We'll start off with A, ordinance amending the city code, administrative code, section 5-215, council districts as recommended by the redistricting advisory commission. Do I say, or do you want to speak on, or I just keep?
Yeah,
going through?
typically, you can read through them now, then
Yeah,
we'll see if anybody
right.
has. Are you going to be reading these during the meeting too? Is that what I'm, oh, good, okay.
All right, and then we got, for B, we have ordinance amending the 2022 human relations budget by adding $250,000 in ARPA allocation for rental and utility assistance. C, amending city code section 576-502 parking zones established traffic control to remove metered parking on the 100 and 200 and 300 blocks of North 9th Street. D, amending City of Reading Code, section 576-403, parking prohibited in certain areas by requiring parking stalls on city streets and requiring that vehicles be parked between the stall lines. No portion of a vehicle shall be located on or over a line designated a parking space, but shall be located within a single marked space. No vehicle shall be permitted to occupy more than one parking space at a time. Believe that's it.
Thank you, Councilman Butler. Now, Council President Waltman, do we allow time to discuss or will we have time to go at the next?
Typically, we'll read one and then go through them, but if anybody has any questions on any of them, I would,
We do need an executive session,
we do.
don't we? About book lending?
No, that's on a future meeting. And I was suggesting next week so that after the executive session, it'd be another week to stew on it.
Marcia,
All right, does anybody-
Marcia had her hand up.
I need someone to turn off their mic. Okay, my question is more around ordinance regarding the parking stalls. I think that's a very powerful change in the way that we park, and I just wanted to have time whether we need to speak with the parking authority on that. I understand what's being said, and it's interesting because we'll require people to develop better parking skills to be able to stay within the line. So I don't know whether anyone has any more detail on that, or it's something we need to bring the parking authority to discuss.
Sure, we can certainly invite the parking authority to give a much more detailed explanation. But so far, what we're proposing is a pilot program
Okay.
before we make too much of a large investment. So I don't have the list in front of me, but there's about 20 to 30 blocks been chosen to do a pilot program throughout the city. With this pilot program, an engineer will evaluate each block. And from what I'm being told from the parking authority, we actually are having more spaces are actually being created in many of the blocks. And, but we'll be able to, if you would like, the parking authority can give you more details, but it is a pilot program. So before we get why approach this, because there's costs to do this, but we
Sure.
do believe it will help with the parking situation. It's not,
Mhm.
we'll solve it completely, but will help alleviate some of the issues with parking and people saving parking spots. Sometimes people park at a spot and a half and they wait till their significant other comes home. And so it'll prevent some of those things. It seems to work in other municipalities, but before we go full blown, we're suggesting a pilot program first.
Again, it's just gonna be interesting to see how people finally learn how to parallel park correctly.
Shouldn't the ordinance limit it to a certain area then? Right now, the ordinance says it, like it's citywide.
Sure. We could do that if that's preferred. We can amend the ordinance and say, okay, this is a pilot program. We'll put the blocks that have been chosen. And then if it's a successful pilot program, then we can rescind that. But if that's something we should do, we certainly could do that if that's recommended. We just gotta get you that list. We'll send it over to, I guess, your office. Would you send the pilot? There's like 20 or 30 blocks. I can get that to you.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so that'll be ordinance for next.
Right, then I guess we can amend, right, you can amend it.
Well, it's
the
an
next meeting.
introduction, right? of-
Well, today's introduction, but I
Right.
guess you're allowed to amend it and they
Before
vote
the
on it.
next meeting.
So, yeah. Okay, I'll get those blocks. I'll send it to everybody. So if anybody has any input about where they're at. Okay.
Okay, I saw Maria's hand up, and Melissa, did you also have your hand up?
I had a question, but Frank already answered it while he was speaking. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Maria?
Who will pay for the cost of that, the city or the Reading Parking Authority?
So far, the pilot program's been paid by the parking authorities paid the engineering costs and they will assist and pay for the line striping
Thank you.
for the pilot program. Now, when we go citywide, we'll have to take a look at that and see how that would work.
Okay, thank you.
Linda?
Will we ever be hearing the results of the parking study?
Yes, let me follow up on that and see the status and I don't have direct knowledge at the moment, but I just wrote it on my list to make sure that that's going to be added to another meeting. So
Thank you.
I'll get that information.
Thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to 11 resolutions. Would anyone be opposed if we read them all together? Okay, so we have Resolution A, reappointing Lisa Blount to the Human Relations Commission. Resolution B, reappointing Karen Archie to the Human Relations Commission. And Resolution C, appointing Tim Waldman to the Fire Building Code Board of Appeals. Marcia, would you like to comment or you'll save it for the meeting?
We all were involved, Johanny, Wes and myself in the interviewing.
Thank you. And Council President, I'm passing it right back to you because I think we have reviewed the agenda for this evening.
Fabulous picture of the pagoda. Look how it was lit up.
There was actually some confusion. Because there's the two contracts, you're right on that's for the preventative maintenance. For the repairs, that's the $450,000 one. That's they're substantially complete within 270 days. So it's not a term, it's like a repair contract to get it done.